Well, welcome back to the Better Divorce podcast. I'm your host, yours truly, Paulette Rigo, CEO and founder of the Better Divorce Academy, and author of #1 best-selling book, Better Divorce Blueprint, and yes, the host of the Better Divorce podcast. Today, I am really excited and thrilled and honored to have a friend slash peer slash, sacred light that I met many years ago when I first moved to Atlanta, and her name is Dr. Ursula Lentine. We met at the Buckhead Club where Steve and I met many people that made an influence on me when I first came to the Atlanta area, and that still holds true. So Ursula is a facilitator of helping thousands in private sessions work with various organizational groups since 2010. But the reason I love her work is that she really helps people understand why they are in the situation they're in. And when it comes to divorce, well, look no further. So I just want to tell you a little bit about her. She works individually with clients to reveal and remove internally embedded beliefs and physical conditions. And when I think of divorce, I can't think of something more appropriate. I talk to so many people that have those same exact complaints about my shoulder hurts, my neck hurts, my back hurts, my stomach hurts, my head hurts. How did this happen? And these beliefs that we have can rear their ugly heads in physical conditions, and you have found the facilitator to help with them. These symptoms are predispositions from inherited legacy burdens or activated by traumas and life circumstances. She's also a subconscious work specialist using internal family systems, known as IFS, and has a doctorate in consciousness studies. So I'm so thrilled you're here today to have this conversation with me, Ursula. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. We always have good connection and understanding and flow between the two of us. So it was so nice to reconnect with you and share our experience with others.
I agree. I know when I first met you, it was just like this instant connection with you. Like I could just feel your light and your generosity that you have with people regarding helping them through trauma and past, present, and future imprints that they have, and making sure that their future life is the better and not repeating cycles from the past. So let's talk a little bit about why you do this work. And yes, please, tell people a little bit about, the extensive training and studies that you've had, a little bit about your path and your background so people can learn more about why you do what you do.
Okay. I just have a lot of compassion for suffering. I've had my share. And when I was a child, I wish there was somebody, to help, to talk to. And there really wasn't. I had my grandmother, but, she was only had so much limited access. And I said, there should be people that help kids because their parents are the enemy. And then I said, well, I'm going to be that person when I grow up. So I did. And I worked with children, kind of for children for many years. And then when I did the internal family systems, I'm still working with children because most of our trauma happens 3, 4, 5 years old or, different ages depending on the events. Right. So when we're little tykes, we have conclusions like, oh, people aren't paying attention to me. Oh, they don't come when I cry. And, oh, well, I guess that means I'm not important. I better keep my mouth shut. I'm really not good enough, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be treated this way. So here we are, adults, and we're the 3 and 4 year old is running the show. Like, you're not good enough. Don't try. Failure is going to be bad, so don't even try. So these are the kinds of conversations we dig around and find, and then talk to the 3, 4 year old and find out, what happened to make them. And it's emotionally based. So when we have these belief systems, it's not just an idea. It comes from an emotion, and then we want to interpret the emotion and we lock the belief.
And did you decide as a young woman, whether that be high school, college, or beyond, that you wanted to study this? Was there I don't want to say a normal, a traditional path in which that type of education or training would lead you, what the trajectory of saying, okay, well, then I should, study this and study that. Because, being a metaphysician isn't exactly, okay, I'm going to be a dentist or, I'm going to be, I don't know, I don't mean to pick on any profession, right? Or but, normally there's okay, if you want to pursue a career in
Yes,
X, I need to do X, Y,
right.
and Z there. So
So
how did you really
yeah,
navigate that? Because it
I,
seems so mysterious, right?
it's, yes, it's kind of a long road, but that's how, you get there. I was raised Catholic and dedicated Christian, the whole thing. Seventh and eighth grade, they stopped answering my questions, and I got mad. I was like, "That's not cool. You led me down this path, and now that I'm getting more mature, I need to know these things." And they said God works in mysterious ways, and I'm like, "Well, we're smart enough. We were made in His likeness and image. Come on, there should be some more information." But there was a wall there, and I wasn't happy, and I didn't understand how to live a better life with no path to follow. So when I was 18, I moved out and I moved to California, and I went on 4 years of spiritual quest. I need to find out, there's got to be a better way. What's the other systems? What are the other religions offer? And then I ended up staying with a cousin, a third cousin. He was an elder, and his wife, and they took me in for a few months to babysit the house while they were in Big Bear. And it turns out he was a metaphysician. So I studied with him for 4 years every week, took the classes, and then did all the other esoteric studies and all the things, many, many classes. I was listening to Deepak Chopra in a gymnasium back way, way in the day, before he even was known. So then, fast forward many years, I tried to be a normal person, and then I was a real estate broker and knocking it out, on the board, chair, whatever. And then the whole system collapsed. So I said, you know what? Let me just do what makes me happy and what I love to do. So I got formal training in the Centers for Spiritual Living. That was like a 6-year course. They said, "Oh, the next course is ministry." I'm like, "I don't want to be a minister. Like, forget that. I'm going in for the classes." And by the end of the class, I realized, I've always been a minister. So like that. And then I studied quite a few things. I studied Tao for 8 years. I studied the consciousness studies. I just got my degree in 21 during COVID. That was the last part of it was a 300-hour class, papers, all of that. Pranic healing, taking all the classes, all the courses, again, several years, over 10 years of that study. And then, every course I could get my hands on, I took it. So I'm pretty well educated, but I think the most learnings that I ever had was in hospice. I did 2 years of volunteer in hospice. And if you really want to learn what life's all about, speak to somebody who's at the end of their life. They will tell you the truth. And I learned most from that experience.
Yeah, that leaves a profound impact in your life. Well, I'm glad you talked a little bit about that, because there isn't a straight line in a spiritual journey. It's going to look a little bit squiggly, shall we say, right? It isn't linear per se. And sometimes we do meander a little bit and grow. And I know that's one of the things you and I really jibed on, is that being a constant learner. And, I've had my own spiritual path. It's very, very, very different from yours. I found my stumbling when I saw people laying in Shavasana in the South Shore Natural Science Center with dead animals all taxidermed to the wall. And I'm saying, well, how can they be at such peace with all these dead animals staring at them? They didn't really know they were there. They were in Shavasana, but I was like, what? I was a dancer. Like, dancers don't lay on the floor and, drool at the end of an hour or two of sweating. So, never let them see you sweat, and the show must go on, So I never really experienced what peace meant as a dancer. It was always, blisters and calluses and stone bruises and torn ligaments, and everything hurt. Every muscle in my body, every joint ached. And I always felt like I wasn't allowed to feel my emotions and look not perfect, right? Everything had to be perfect 24/7, right? And then when I got married, it was like that had to be perfect too, right? Everything had to be beautiful. And I allowed everyone else to make my decisions for me, because if it didn't work out, well, I wasn't to blame, because, well, I didn't make those decisions. So I can't take responsibility for that. I mean, I wasn't saying this with my mouth, it
Right.
was
But
subconscious, right?
the promise is follow the rules and everybody will be fine.
Exactly, right. And if you don't make waves and all. So when I found yoga, and then of course that led to Ayurveda and 2000 hours of yoga teacher training and Ayurvedic consulting work. And then I studied macrobiotics and macrobiotic counseling. And then I got into uh, cooking, macrobiotic cooking, and helping people with that, changing their diet. And of course, I became a birth doula and then a lactation consultant. And, my woo-woo journey was a little bit like very hands-on with people, with, of course, having taught ballet for 20 years and helping be a teacher. But I've always gravitated towards the metaphysical and, the unknown, and really being curious about why are we here? What is our purpose? Doing the deep dive, the study, the inner work. And now that the work that I do with divorce, it's sometimes a challenge for me, where I'm mediating, and I can see the struggles with couples where they have such a hard time connecting, or they have a difficult time communicating. And it's unfortunate if the marriage is coming to an end for the wrong reasons, but it's usually healing if it is coming to an end for the right reasons, where they're both on the same page. But I wanted to invite you to talk about this today, because it is, and of course my background and your background is all, hopefully people find it relatively interesting. There's all those people out there that gravitate to me as a listener, because of, I'm not just a mediator and a divorce expert and a divorce coach, but I get the holistic side of it, the psychological, mental, emotional, physical, sexual, spiritual side of relationship and love and marriage, besides the judicial and all the practical side, right? Or should we say the spreadsheet side? But it can be um, not challenging, but sad for me, and as an observer, where I see, if maybe they had found the right expert early enough, or at some point in the relationship, perhaps this might not be the end that it's coming to. Although I do find sometimes we do sign a sacred contract with someone, not necessarily knowing how long we've signed that contract with them. Maybe we just signed a 20-year contract and it's run its course, and now it's time to kind of take the lesson, move on, and release those karmic impressions, and move past that stuckness that you may have found in whatever relationship, knowing that it's come to its end. So, but I do want to grab all your wisdom in kind of explaining to people what internal family systems is. Many people don't know what that term is. I myself didn't. When I learned, it went, wow, like mind blown. It really helped me understand family systems, and how you yourself as wife or husband come, and then you bring your internal family systems with you, and then of course they bring theirs, and how that can maybe lead to a lack of connection. So can you explain maybe, IFS 101 for those people that may not be familiar with it,
Sure.
so everyone
Sure.
understands what that term means, because I didn't know either.
Well, just like many things, the name is misnomer, because in the psychological world, they referred to another program called family systems. So in that modality, the father plays the thing, the middle kid plays this, the baby plays that. So it's a family system, and you can see everybody's roles and how they interact. So this name is called internal family systems, where there's different parts of us. So the languaging is parts. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Inside Out. It's an animated movie. So they have Inside Out 1 and 2. So if everybody could just watch that with new eyes after this conversation that we're having, then they'll understand. So it was about a little girl, and they were moving, and it was traumatic for her. And then the movie would go inside her head, And there would be like an angry part and a disgusted part and a nervous part and all these different parts. And they would talk about what was going on. And then she would interact with her parents, and then her mom's parts would talk, and you'd see all that conversation. So we are talking to ourselves all day long, and everybody's talking to themselves all day long. Isn't it curious that no one's talking about all the talking? So if you think about it and listen, a lot of the talking is not nice. We're judging, we're criticizing, not good enough. It's like, haven't met anybody who says not good enough isn't running in their head. Maybe some really good, full blown, checklist narcissists. They won't admit it, but it's in there. And then this thing with divorce, everybody's like, oh, he's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. We just love to call people names. But because I know the things that I know, a true narcissist has had a very traumatic childhood, very traumatic past, where they had to break reality and let that go and create this other high volume, intense, powerful person, because what they really feel inside is crushed. So when people are like, oh, narcissist, I'm like, do you know the backstory? Why are you going to call them names like that? Do you know why they behave that way? So when we see somebody behaving in a kind of a grand way, if you think of what's opposite, that's how they're feeling. And that's why they have to exaggerate that and zoom that up, because feeling that small feeling is so uncomfortable and unsafe.
Right. Yeah, I like to call it the hollow Easter egg bunny. I know I usually get a hollow Easter egg bunny and a solid Easter egg bunny from my clients when I know that they're having a hard time understanding why their spouse behaves the way they do, because they have to co-parent with the person too.
Yes.
And when they grow up in that situation, whether they be 3 or 13 or whatever age happened, or I know you mentioned that earlier, they felt hollow inside. There was something missing, really, and they typically need to get their accolades or identification or feel filled up from the external world, from the outside in. Whereas a healthier person will feel solid inside, and they receive that same self-respect and identification and confidence
Yeah.
from the inside out, right?
Yes.
So to remind them, are we talking about a solid Easter egg bunny or a hollow Easter egg bunny? They're hard to come around this time of year, but in April I stock up. So it really helps them with the visual of
Yes.
understanding why they feel hollow or empty or void inside, and why they use those behaviors or tactics or languages. And it does always stem from that. So unfortunately, being in a marriage with someone when you don't understand why they do what they do, and it becomes damaging or controlling or manipulative, where there's kind of evil, maniacal, kind of, convoluted behavior or language, it rears havoc on them, not just the marriage, right?
Right.
And the children. So, and unfortunately, many of these situations do end in divorce. And many of them, unfortunately, go to a therapist or counselor that is not versed or trained or experienced in this type of dynamic. And
Yes.
sometimes, someone will say, oh, I'll go to therapy, when really all they want to do is learn all the vulnerable parts of yourself in a sacred container and use them against you in
Oh,
mediation or in divorce. So it kind of breaks the trust even more so, right?
yeah. Yeah.
In the work that you do, and I know you also have a wonderful group, so I want you to talk a little bit more about that too. I believe it's on Meetup or some sort of online platform,
Mhm.
um, where you work individually in private settings and help them really identify, where they are, and but then also in the group setting. So, can you talk a little bit about what it's like to work through some of the sessions that you do, or because I know people are curious, like, what does she actually do, and how does that help, and how can that help my marriage and my life?
So all those voices in our head, we hear the belief system, but then there's an emotion driving it. Not only does the emotion drive the belief system, it drives our behavior. So we're in a non-emotional environment society. Like, we don't talk about emotions. How are you doing? Fine. Not how do you feel today? And then our emotional list is like happy, mad, sad.
Right.
you
It's
know.
four words. Yeah.
So nonviolent communication has pages of emotions,
Right.
but in our society, we don't really care about them because they're big and they're unmanageable. So we try to manage everything with our head and with our controllers. So in the internal family systems, Dick Schwartz, the creator, put it into three categories. And one is the controllers. He calls them the managers, where we're trying to control everything. And then I call these other guys the distractors, the addicts. He calls them the firefighters. So it's like this push, pull, push, pull. Like, let's control everything and let's go use. Let's go avoid. Let's check out. Let's get on social media. Let's disappear. Let's not deal with the marriage. Let's not communicate. So the more this person runs, the more this person wants to control. And that's a dynamic within relationships that are unfortunately too common.
Yeah, I see that a
Now,
lot.
right? So then and then the third group, so this is going on also inside an individual, right? So someone has addiction and they're like, oh, I used again. Oh, I messed up and this. Okay, I'm going to now do this and I'm going to do this. So there's a fight going on inside of them. And now when they're trying to talk to somebody else, they have a short fuse because they're so busy fighting inside, struggling inside. So between these two, down in the bottom here, is what he calls the exiles, and I call them the tender parts. So at 3 and 4, we're like, nobody loves me, no one cares, I'm not important, or I have to prove my worth all the time, I have to push really hard, or the depressed parts or the anxious parts that it doesn't look good. So we're just shove them down and shove them down and shove them down. So we have these dynamics that are going on at all times. So therapy kind of focuses on these parts, but internal family systems is not therapy. Lots of therapists use it, and I'm not a therapist. So the internal family systems is healing. It's not therapy. You go inside to these hurt parts, these tender parts, because they're the ones causing all the problems. These guys are distracting from the parts. You go straight to that. Some people want to work with the addict parts, but you can't negotiate with them. They're squirrely. Like forget it. They'll get away with everything. So you go to these tender parts, the parts of us that cry to bed at night when people are going through divorce. It's heartbreaking. And our whole system of what's peace and happiness and the way things should be goes to hell in a handbasket, and you're a failure and he's a failure and it's my fault and it's his fault, and it's just like spiraling of discomfort. And then what's the way out? What's the way out? And you and I have worked with the same client before, and it's really important to get this emotional piece and the logistical piece and how you've structured the safety net for that mutual client. And then, because I believe that when people are getting divorced, they need to do all of this work before they get to the lawyers. Because when they get in court, it all plays out and it's emotions. Unresolved emotional conflict plays out in courts, and the lawyers are taking full advantage of that because they know. So I'm like, save your money, come do the work before you even start talking about this, and then move forward. Many times I'll say to people who are thinking about divorce or getting a divorce, you will always be a family. So let's start there. Let's start that you will have to get along. You have children, they're going to have weddings, they're going to have problems, you're going to have to solve things as a family. So stay as a family, figure out the conflict, figure out the communication, but know in your heart you are a family with this person and you have children with this person. And that's the goal, to get to a place of communication, respect, because people lose respect. That's a huge piece of the problem in marriages is someone's lost respect, and it's very hard to gain respect after you've lost it.
Yes, and I also see that resentment is a major part of it too, hard, difficult part of it, right? Where there's so many things that have happened over the course of the marriage, of course, of the relationship, of course, of trying to parent, and of course, the family dynamics too come in from both spouses' family of origin. But when things have happened over the course of the relationship, those little unsaid, unhealed, unaddressed words and actions build resentment, chip on your shoulder, right? Of like, how dare you and all that, or I'll never let them this again. And it just starts to weigh heavy on them. I see that with clients who come to me in coaching mode where they're going through the box of tissues and they're here for a few hours. And yes, we're doing the spreadsheet side and how long have you been married and do you have children and what are your assets and what do you do for work and what does your spouse do? You know, all the non-emotional questions, right? The just demographic part of it. And not to say that there aren't emotions attached to those too, but for
Sure.
the most part, then we get into the part of like, so who did what to whom talk, right? And I usually ask them, is the divorce your idea? Is it your spouse's idea? Is it mutual? And that just opens up the conversation about all of the behavior as well. I see
And
that
the
too.
yeah, and the problem is with that, the one who is resentful is not communicating. So, you can look at them and say, well, you're causing the dismantling of this relationship because you didn't open your mouth and say, hey, this isn't working, or I'm not okay with this, or I'm uncomfortable with that. So they stockpiled this list of hatred things and, poor me, and I've been done wrong. And that is usually a family trait. No talking, no communicating. Our family doesn't talk about these things. You just zip it up and move on. So the one spouse who is resenting and having that list of like, see, they did it again. See, and they always keep score, and the other person doesn't even know they're keeping score against them. And it's really difficult because when the parents and that family dynamic come in, and then that child is an adult and they're running the same patterns, and this new person comes in and they don't know the patterns. Like, I think it would be really smart to spend lots of time with other people's families because you can see the pattern and you can say, oh, she's just like her mom, or oh, he's just following his dad and his grandfather. Then you know who you're marrying, because a lot of times people have this like starlight in their eyes, and it's almost like they put the glasses on and they see the person through the glasses, the rose colored glasses, and they're not studying carefully, like, oh, he has a bad habit, oh, he lies, oh, he's stubborn, oh, she's always late, oh, she's so disorganized, oh, she talks so much, oh she, like, we have to understand in the very beginning of who the person is, that the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's why I always recommend people become friends first, because as soon as sex happens, the chemistry blinds our vision of who people are, and we just want to see what makes us happy.
Very true. I find that in these situations when these patterns become so either um, innocuous or hidden or swept under the rug, however you want to think about it, or just things we tolerate or don't really delve into and try to understand, they just perpetuate for generations to come. And one of the reasons I'm so committed to changing the experience of divorce is I want to break the cycle. If anytime I can help a family be the change that they wish to see in the world, if we want to quote Gandhi, right?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be this way. Marriage can be a beautiful, congruent, collaborative, connected experience, but it
Yeah.
can also be a painful, uh, hard lesson and experience. But if, like you said, if you do the work early, I know the marriage I'm in now is extremely different than the one I was in when I was, 22. It's like night and day. I'm able
Yeah.
to because I've done so much work over the
Work.
last 15 to 20 years since I made the major change in my life, quitting a job that felt dead end and painful, leaving a marriage that didn't feel healthy, doing all that work. But it wasn't just quitting the job and filing for divorce. There was
No.
years, years and years of internal work and study. And I'm not a therapist either, people. Although,
The
excuse
big
me,
the
many people say I should have been. But it's I'm a good observer. I'm a constant learner and a
Yes.
listener and an empath, and I really I'm committed to helping people change the experience so that, I'm proud to say I've saved many marriages. It's never my intention. I never go in and go, are you sure you two don't want to stay married? I have a couple I just mediated 2 weeks ago, and they're kind of on the fence, and he wants to save it and she doesn't. I think he knows in his heart that she's done, but it all has to do with internal family systems of very painful childhoods. And
See.
I've tried to introduce them to, and they're doing the work. But the fact that they didn't run to court and put down a retainer with an attorney, and they're not suing each other and destroying the family. Now they don't have children together, but children from other relationships. And it is making a difference. Yeah, I mean, not wholly yet. It's still, we're in the works of it, but I
Yeah.
do. I hate to say lecture, Ursula, but doctor. I do try to do my best to make sure that they know that there's work to be done, and this is just the
Yes.
beginning and not the end.
Yeah, because people spend their whole lives running from those exiles, the tender parts, right? Because we don't want to feel sad, we don't want to feel less than, we don't want to feel worthless. So we try to prove and this and that, and then you might be like, "Oh, look at this person; he's very successful," and wow, wow. But then you start finding out, like, wait, there's something driving this behavior, and they don't want to talk about it because their family doesn't talk about those things. But when we can create a safe space for each other and be vulnerable with each other and talk about feelings, that's where the foundation, the bottom of the nest, the sacred space gets established. Then the kids come and the mother's like, oh, I've got to play this role now. And the dad's like, oh, I guess I'm just a paycheck. No one cares about me. I'm a robot. And that's where the separation starts happening. And then another scenario is the woman will be like, we need to talk and and you never take me out. So she thinks she's communicating and he thinks she's nagging because she just says the same thing over again and it doesn't even make any sense. And what does it matter if I take the garbage out or not? Like, yeah, you want to spend time, but then you just bitch and moan the whole time. I don't want to spend, that's not kind of time I want. But I don't say anything. And then you have the one person is a yes dear and the other person's the controller. And that's another obnoxious, unhealthy, unhappy relationship as well. So there's some typical scenarios that people are playing out and living out. That is very sad. It's very sad for me to look at a couple and say, wow, you're just a few beats away from happiness for both of you. If they could only connect and again respect and communicate. I did want to show a scenario, if I could.
Please.
When I work with couples, it's always an inside job, right? So it's around self love. So, like you said, you were in your first marriage and things were not beautiful, and then you left, but then you had to rebuild your whole personality. You had to discover who am I really without this role, or without this safety net, or without somebody else there to define me. And we have to go inside deep and then heal all these things that we've inherited and all the belief systems. And if anybody's had sexual abuse along the way, we project that out into our partner, and then the intimacy doesn't happen because she hasn't done the work. And I mean, it just goes on. I made a little chart here, and this is how the scenario goes. So each person, so this is, doesn't matter, this person, that person. So here's your couple. So this person behaves in a way and it triggers this person. This person gets triggered and has a reaction. And this person's like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. And then they feel this part. So this part might be rejected. So then this person's feeling rejected. And this person who said something nasty is now feeling rejected. And then they respond in a shutdown. So they just shut down. And now this person who was rejected, this person shut down and they feel abandoned. And then when this person feels abandoned, they get angry. That's just one of the, and then when they're angry, this person gets scared and gets small and kind of, just hides and distracts. So you see, one argument could trigger three or more parts in each person. And this pattern can run over and over and over again. Money, sex, child disciplining, work schedules, time together, other family members that keep interfering. So these patterns, once people identify the pattern, they can go here like, yeah, when you do this, I feel like this. And there's going to be certain phrases that this part will say, and then that will trigger this to happen. And then they will say certain phrases. So you can easily identify what goes on. And then I have them take these sheets and put them on the refrigerator. And then they'll be like, oh my God, we're running that. Wait, you just said that thing on D. Come here, look. And then they go and they identify they're in the loop. And then you can pop out of the loop. But individually, I work on this person and this person so they can clear those triggers and then they can respond in a different way. So instead of, fighting, one person will start the fight and the second person will be like, I'm not going to do that because that's the model that doesn't work. And then they can make a different choice. But it's all awareness.
Yes, it is all awareness. As soon as we can look at it with the mirror and identify why we're doing what we're doing, why we're feeling the way we're feeling, it's a lot easier to see it from a clear lens than a foggy one. And thank you for that demonstration. Divorce is complex, unfortunately.
Very,
It is
very.
just the emotional part. And it can get complicated when we have two controlling people or two avoiders instead of one avoider and one controlling. And sometimes people will switch roles too, depending on the situation. They like to control A, but they like to avoid B. And they'll, oh, it's your turn, I'll take turns. And and exhaustion can come into it too with children and all that. It gets complicated. But when it comes down to it, if you've done all that work or you haven't, it's your responsibility to either apply it or do the work so you know what you're discussing. Many people just aren't willing, to see that. And I always try to make sure that I leave an impression on my clients that you want this not to be passed down to your children, right? And if there's anything that you have said to break that cycle, now's your opportunity. Because I say, you're not making these decisions just for the two of you. You're now making them for the next generation. Because the worst thing you can teach a son is it's okay to treat your future girlfriend, fiance, wife like X. And the worst thing you can teach your daughter is, oh, it's okay to be treated this way, or vice versa. It's okay to treat your spouse this way, women, right? So don't mean to be, sexist one way or the other. And also between heterosexual and homosexual couples, the dynamics can be complex there too, right?
Yes.
It isn't just male or female. So it's just
No.
sort of that male female energy, as we call it. So it's very complicated. And if you can have someone like Dr. Ursula hold your hand and do that work prior to, you may not need me. Which is fine. I'm busy enough. I'm not pro-divorce, as most people know, and I am proactive, either doing everything you can to save the marriage or make it healthy, or proactive to get out with dignity and grace and wisdom, so that you.
Yes, yes. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to say like, oh, we're just grown apart. We have different interests. The kids are grown. I've become a different person. You become a different person. We don't need to do this. We're not making each other happy. We're not connecting.
Right.
Like namaste, like peace out. Like
Right.
that
And
would
there's
be.
no shame and embarrassment in that either. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Well, what's the best way for people to learn about you and your work and contact you and, follow you and, dare I say, stalk you on social media? So
No stalking. No stalking.
just a joke, but yeah.
Yeah.
Check you out.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, my name is on all my social media and just keep it very simple. My website, I offer a 20-minute free connection call, a clarity call, where people just tell me what's going on in their world and I tell them how I would approach that. Most of the people are like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. And then we do an intro session to discover, the behind the scenes. And then I do a 12 session set to really clear the decks, because there's things that we're so layered and we're so complex that it just takes a minute to come in and really compassionately fall in love with ourselves like we've never done before because we're so busy role playing. I also offer a Tuesday night meditation. That's what you were mentioning earlier, where we bless the planet with loving kindness and get the rewards in the meantime. The meditation has been third party studied, and it was so effective compared to other meditations that the researchers started doing the meditation. So I've been doing that since 2008, and it's just a really beautiful practice to meditate, to be in a place of wonder, to be in a space of listening rather than talking, and to be receptive to the good that's available to us. And the people become gentler and kinder who are doing the meditation. They find they have more peace. So, that's what I'm all about, peace and love. That's, it's pretty much an easy target there.
Well, I can't think of anything more valuable. And this conversation is really about self-mastery, living your best life and making smart choices, really understanding yourself, how you tick, why you do what you do, why you make the decisions you do, and living your best life. So thank you. Everybody, please take her up on that 20-minute call. And Dr. Ursula Lentine, Lentine. I just have this very, I don't know, I must want lentils. So I was thinking like, no, I'm not even hungry, but I was like, no, anyway. But I love lentils. Lentils are one of my favorite foods. So check out her website, please. She is one of the brightest light I've ever met in the world. And she knows what she's doing. I had the honor of attending her graduation ceremony. I don't know what to call it, but it was a really beautiful ceremony where many of the people special in her life got together at her lovely home to congratulate her on her achievements in the ministry. That she was like, wait, I'm a minister? So yeah, I guess you are. So
Yeah, that one was a doctor. The ministry happened in 2008, and I was all like, I don't know what all this is, like whatever.
but
And then when I got the doctorate in 21, that's when you and your husband came,
right in
and
21.
so that's quantum physics, metaphysics, and spirituality intersection. So most people don't understand what that means, and that's okay. Just love and peace is the name of the game here, and I know I just know a lot more um, than that, but I can bring people to that based on the
Well, it's a
studying.
wonderful opportunity to get to see you as a professional in that separate realm too. So thank you for the gracious invitation, and it's been a delight to have you in my life. So everybody, take her up on her offer. So you know how I roll. Make it better. There's we can't make it best, but we can make it better.
Yeah.
Life isn't perfect, but we can certainly die trying. So thanks everyone, and until next time, make it better. See you soon.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you so much. It was beautiful to share with you. Thank you.
My pleasure. So I'll see you next time, everyone. Bye bye.